number, you have a text name, and that can differ from the attribute if needed. So you can link it to an attribute. The only one that will catch you out, obviously, is the max number of characters. If you want to change that, you can come in here and modify it. The translation table is going to give you a list of values or descriptions, and oftentimes if you're working between DTM panel and sharing that with another team who might be using a different translation, or they're using DTM in a different language, you can come in here and modify the language technical terms. You can see here if there's some sort of mistranslation, it's easily corrected here. The other drop-down menu is color definitions. This one can be helpful, especially if you have an issue with particular colors, maybe color blindness. You may want to modify the color of the highlight or color of certain types of text. You can also define different schematic types. You can create your own schematic type if you want. The only distinction here is in addition to electrical symbols, you have the ability to create hydraulic symbols or pneumatic symbols, and then you would have a corresponding sheet that matches the hydraulic or pneumatic. These icons are helpful to look at just so that you have a reference if you see them under a part in the database that this is what they belong to. So you can see single line diagram icons and then panel symbols themselves. You have a list of icons that you can change objects. So if you want to modify them, you can. Again, you want to make sure that you have your grid settings defined in a format that is going to be easy to help you create symbols. So that could be that 16th or 1/8 of an inch spacing. This is your checklist for creation steps. You want to define the symbol type, name it, and add any additional attributes. You want to create the symbol graphic. You want to define your pins, determine the text types, and determine the text positions, as well as defining any space requirements. This is that example of just a standard normally open symbol. You have your attributes, your graphics, and that origin must always sit on that first pin. The reason for that being that you want the pins all to be in relation to the grid. So if I'm creating that symbol in my database editor, you'll notice that the spacing between the first pin and the second pin is that 1/2 inch. And all symbols should be set up on a 1/2 inch grid spacing at minimum. You can have them be 1 inch apart, obviously, or 1/2 inch apart, but this will help you align them with any grid positions or ladder positions for your numbering. If you want to check the coordinates of your pins, you have this edit node coordinates. See all of the node coordinates here, X position 0, Y position 0 on the first pin. That's the crucial one. And then everything offset in that pattern. If I create a new symbol, and I want to create a box here, I can add nodes by simply coming up to my node options in the top left. Some of these are specific for the model. The ones that you want to use for your symbols are these blank ones here. You can also have ones that are connect on a vertical or connect only on a horizontal. If I add this pin node in here, I can add it to the origin as my first pin. If I go to my text attributes, I can add in a pin description, which is going to tell me the type of pin. Add that. Important thing to note with the symbols is we must pair the pins to the attribute that we want corresponding with that pin. So we select both the pin node and the text attribute, and we select group graphic. So you'll check your node coordinate here. You'll see it's at 0, 0. Now the other option we have is to add multiple nodes. Here I can add additional nodes vertical, half-inch spacing, and then we can determine the order in which we want the pins to be numbered. So I'm going to number them going down, connect left. Okay. I've added them in here. And then the same thing again, I can add a pin description for each one. Copy and even paste. Here. And you'll notice these are pin descriptions that are being numbered. This one is pin description 1. I'll pair this with pin description 2 by right-clicking and grouping the graphic. And graphic in 4. Up a little bit, maybe leave a little room at the bottom. Now I do have text templates that I can add. So if I want to, I can come over to my miscellaneous. I can have a text template already set up. I have one here called text C _ or text centered. I can place that on here. For my higher level assignment, my location, might want to move just these pieces up. I can also obviously change the justification from my taskbar. Got my pins here. Now I want to add some graphical properties so that I can actually see these pins. So I might add some lines here. 1, 2. Now the other thing you want to keep in mind is you do have a fit requirement area. So if I go up to my taskbar and I select this red box, I can see my space requirement of the symbol, and I can also automatically adjust it to be the boundary of my objects here. Create another symbol really. Here I'm just going to make that simple contact point here. We're creating a graphic lines, and then an additional I can also add in multiple nodes here. We'll put in a half-inch spacing, left to right. Two. Thing. And then if I do place one like this, I can obviously move it and I can rotate it. I can also mirror it on my y-axis. Add in that additional text. Again, if you want to modify it slightly, you can bring this down here. And then the other part of the text that's helpful here is if you wanted to, could also add in an optional text that you want to, or attribute that you would want to have the option to show and what position you would want to show it in. So in this case, if I wanted to show something like the technical description, say we want to add a technical description here as an option that we could turn on or off, we'll hit OK. And I could put this just down below the second pin, and I will right click and I can go to text properties and I can make it invisible. When I do that, it still appears here, but it appears with a line through it, meaning that it does not show up immediately when I place this symbol in a project. However, if I were to have a technical data description for a device or a component and I wanted to show it, it would show up right here as opposed to that instance where it just drops up in the top right corner and then we have to move it to a position. So if we wanted to, we could add in multiple optional locations for additional information. The other thing is that the technical data as it shows up here is a little bit different when it's displayed as a text type. When we display it as text content, the text is actually shown in the right scale, and we may find that we need to adjust this up or down so that there's not any overlap. We can also adjust the font here as needed, and we could even put in a manual value for our font. Any symbol is an attribute. You have the symbol name, the symbol type. Once a symbol has been saved with a specific name to the database, then we cannot modify it after that. If we want to change the name, we should right-click, create a new copy of that symbol, rename it, and then delete the existing one. At a base minimum, you want to have a class and a description for that symbol as well. If we want to define the type of symbol, we can select our symbol properties and choose electric or panel symbol. We can also choose hydraulic or pneumatic or single line diagram. And then that is also a good way to set up your search configuration in the database. So if I look at the database here, if I were to go up to my symbol name, I have schematic type added here, and I could filter all of my attributes by only those that are associated with single line diagrams or hydraulic or pneumatic, etc. Okay. It's just another way to think about how you set up your search configuration for your database. When I look at this one, if I look at that fit requirement area, you can see that it's here, it's at the outer boundary. If I were to move this and then want to reset it, I can just select the fit space requirement and it will fix itself to that point. This is the boundary that will collide. So you can't obviously stack symbols on top of each other. They will not allow you to put a symbol inside of another symbol's fit requirement area. Only thing missing here is, again, that pin description that we want to apply. And then, most importantly, group it with graphic or the pin that we're choosing here. Origin's really important. I don't think that needs to be etiquette. Graphic elements can be modified. So if you feel the need to, you can obviously go in and modify a graphical point. If I were to add a if I look at this line that I created here, I can go to graphic properties and I can change the graphic display. I can change the information. This is just telling you where the node of the segment are. The first point is at 0, 0. Second point is at x2.25, y20. So 0, 0, and 0.25, 0. We can obviously adjust the length if we needed here. When it comes to circles, we can right-click and go to graphic properties and see that it's at 1.1250, and we can adjust the radius if we need to. Make it larger. The other thing that's available in graphic properties properties is hatches. So I can apply a solid hatch. I can apply a checkerboard crosshatch here, and I can apply a color. So if we need to call out certain point, we can do that here. I could even change the here, apply, and just add some simple effects for clear callouts as well. Again, I'll just mention that snap move mode. If I were to right click here and want to move this object, move it, and then I can always specify a placement with P. So I'll set it 2 inches from the origin and 2 inches up. Here, click and drag to move as well. You can also create expandable or changeable symbols in the database editor. So if you want to be able to create a symbol that is expandable, you can choose the symbol graphic type as fixed, replicate, or dynamic. Replicate is going to take what's existing, and if you try and extend it, it's just going to keep copying and doubling that symbol or those graphic properties. The other one is dynamic, where it just extends a certain point so that you can continue that on indefinitely. I wanted to add text internally. How do I make it so there's white space in the hatch? If I was going to do that, I would create the hatch. I would create a box here. And I could turn on my snap move mode. Enter. And then apply another graphic property. Apply a hatch. Maybe apply a hatch here. And then add my text. Something a little bit like that. Which is just kind of a layering, I think is a layer. I then display order. I could bring this all the way to the foreground. Right click again, set background. I might remove the defining the pins. The other thing we can do is edit the node order. We have the single node placement piece, but we can also define the order. I would say that for the symbols, you want to be aware whether you're moving left to right or all down the left-hand side and then all down the right-hand side of an object. The order that you place the pins in the model does matter more than it does for the symbols. we'll kind of get into why that is. If I want to modify the order, I'm in here, and next to where I add my pin nodes, I have node order. I have a reorder mode, and I have a insert mode or a swap mode. For reorder mode, you can just say the next click is number 1, come in on my second pin and call this pin 1. Next click is pin 2, so I'll call that pin 2, and that's how you can modify that coordinate. You can see this justification is off, so I'm just gonna play. And then obviously we talked about the node coordinates as well. Okay, if I were to just leave this up here right now and I were to look at my fit requirement area, fit it, you can see that it's now including that. Modify it down to the size that we need, or just again reset it. Adding text types, you can use those text templates. I think we understand that we can get those from right here. If we were to create a new symbol, we could also create a new symbol that simply is a text type. So we can right click and go to our symbol properties. We go to type. Call it an attribute text template. Give it a version. Give it a schematic type. Lines. Give it a class. And I'll put it in my miscellaneous attribute text templates. Okay. And then from here, I could just have a list of different attributes that I wanted to include. Could include rating. Could include all of a list, like it could include an entire list of just technical information that we want to include, such as max voltage. And then just have these readily available as a call out if you need them. Look at the attribute text templates that we do have. Template, and look at you'll see here is a symbol for a old bill of materials. Bill of materials report, higher level assignment, position, and then a corresponding attribute for adding text types and defining the space requirements. The most important thing here is just editing or making sure that you're grouping graphics for the pin attributes. Terminal symbols have a unique design because they have 4 ports, and we have to consider the placement of a wire on one port is indicative of 2 things. One, it's going to carry to other parts of the other ports on that terminal block. And also we are defining a pin on a physical model that could be the top pin, it could be the bottom pin, it could be, in this case it's a double stack, right? So we have this pin here, which is corresponding with one symbol, and the second symbol for the top terminal that are passed through here. So 1 contact, 4 ports, each port is a connection, and then this green line shows equivalence, which means that if 24 volts comes into one of these ports, it applies to the rest of those ports. If we tried to put 2 signals on this terminal block, it would throw up an error because it's saying that there's already a signal applied to this connection. So think about your schematics, your physical wires, and your signals that are being applied. That is being applied here. So what does that look like? If I jump in and show you a component in the database, I have my terminal blocks. I have a P92 block here. So I have a physical model. I have a bomb balloon. I have one single terminal block here with 4 ports on it. So a top, bottom, left, and right. And I have 4 pins on my model, a top connection, bottom connection, and 2 jumper connections. If I right click, I can look at my pin assignment, and you'll notice that the way this is set up, I have a name column for each port, which is a $sign, which means basically that this can be assigned or changed in the project because you want to have it be project specific. Each port is defined here as having its own distinct point. So A, B, C, and D. Then we have name equivalence and signal equivalence. Signal equivalence means that if 24 volts comes in here, if it applies to any of the other pins, then we would make them all signal equivalent. By doing that, we just add a value that matches. So these are all 11. If this was a double stack terminal block, then pin A and pin B would be equivalent at 11, and pin C and pin D would be at 12. So you just have to have unique values, and they start at 11. The name equivalence means if a wire is being named, or if a terminal block is being named 200, this is not 200, 201, 202, or 203. They're name equivalent, so they all are called 200 if they're name equivalent, which is what you want for a terminal block, right? Then you would have all of these name equivalent, so they're all called 200. and then they would just be 200 A, B, C, or D. The 1 and 4 are the same electrical connection, so they would have signal equivalence and name equivalence. 2 and 3 are signal equivalents, and they would have name equivalence as well. So for this exercise, you have 20 minutes for creating a new contact symbol. You're going to add some pin nodes. You're going to add a text type template, and you're going to create a symbol from an existing